This month, Altenew has an amazing selection of brand new stamps, dies, stencils, embellishments, and more. Hi everyone, I'm Rebecca Keppel, and in today's video, I'll be sharing a bunch of the brand new Altenew March release. I have an assortment of cards to share with you today, so let's jump right into the card making, and I'll show you what the new products are as we go along. First up, we have the Rustling Leaves press plates. I love that Altenew is making press plates that are compatible with the Spellbinders BetterPress. So here I have one of the leaf clusters and a couple of the sentiments from that set, and I've inked them up in black ink. I'm using the Spellbinders cotton press cardstock, and I run it through my die cut machine. I have that cardstock taped down to the clear plate that magnetizes down to the BetterPress platform. I'll use a different green ink on the leaves for a totally different look, and I'll run that through my die cut machine as well. So you get both the impression and the color, and the detail that you get from press plates is like nothing I've seen from stamps, whether it be rubber stamps or clear stamps. So we're going to start by using the Rustling Leaves layering stencils. Now, this is what I am so excited about working with Altenew, is that they have layering stencils, layering stamps, layering dies, and using their layering stencils is an easy way to color in these really detailed and gorgeous images. As you can see, I am using two different colors of green on these leaves that I've stamped in green, and that gives them such a look of blending and shading, just like you could achieve with markers or watercolors, but in a fraction of the time. Literally, you are just ink blending, and it is so easy to do with detailed ink brushes and slightly larger ink brushes for larger areas, and a good assortment of colors of ink. And I will list the colors that I use. These are all Altenew inks down below in the YouTube description box. So when I'm using the stamp wheel to place a stencil on top of a piece of cardstock, it's definitely going to keep the cardstock in place, but depending on how I stamped it, I may have to use a little bit of tape to hold that stencil in place for sure. I'm doing the same type of coloring on the press plate that I used with the black ink, and I love how you get two totally different looks, whether you use black ink or green ink, and then using two different colors of inks on the leaves with a slightly darker color at the base of those leaves, and you can achieve that with a small detailed blending brush. I love the assortment of blending brushes that you can get from Altenew, and I'll also link that in my description box. That's what I purchased for myself, was that sort of assortment of blending brushes that you get a bunch of different sizes in one set. I'm using some Spellbinders tape to hold the dies in place. Now this is the Rustling Leaves 3D embossing folder. So I'll place a white piece of cardstock inside in a horizontal format of an A2 piece of white cardstock, and then I'm using the largest blending brush from that set that I mentioned with one of the Glacier Caves inks. I'm doing some very basic ink blending here, just going in a circular motion and starting from the edges and moving towards the center. I'm trying to leave that very center circle as pale or as white as I can, and creating the darkest parts of the ink blending on the outside. So I have a sentiment from the press plates, and I have two of the leaf clusters that I stamped in green and then colored in with green inks. I'll pop up the sentiment and one of the leaf clusters at the top, and then pop up another leaf cluster at the bottom, tucking one of those leaves behind the sentiment. Then I'll flip the card over and trim off anything that hangs off the side so that I can be sure that this will fit into an A2 envelope if I do want to send it in the mail. And I love these leaves. I love them so much. You could use them for a variety of different cards. They're just such a nice springy look to them. I'm also using some gem sparkles. These are so nice to add as embellishment. You get great dimension from them and shine. Next up, this is the Essential Textures Rustic Burlap Press Plate. And I love this background. I think it is such a cool look. There's so much texture to it without having to add a ton of texture. But especially if you use the cotton press cardstock, you're going to get a great impression and great color of this burlap. So I stamped one in a clay ink and one in a brown ink, and I'll use both of these as backgrounds today in this video. I would definitely do a whole bunch more of these and just keep them to the side because I think they're great backgrounds. Here I have an A2 piece of craft cardstock. You can see I die cut some things out of it. So I'll place a little tape runner all around those open spaces and then place my burlap that I cut down to 4 by 5 1/4 down on top. I have one of the little sprays of leaves and then a sentiment that says "Your strength inspires me." And these are the mossy granite enamel dots. I thought this was a very natural, organic combination. The browns and the greens, it just looks very springy and full of life. And I just thought it was such a nice way to send an inspiration card. For the other burlap background, I decided to use an A2 piece of white cardstock. I'm using sapphire ink, which is the darkest color in the Glacier Cave set. And you can see that I ink blended an edge all around that cardstock. So I cut the burlap panel down to 4 by 5 1/4 so I could mat it on top. I have a bunch of small foam squares behind this little sprig of leaves, and now I have a sentiment. There's so many great sentiments in that BetterPress set. And then to finish off this card, I have some more gem sparkles. These are in crystal clear, so they'll go with any card that you want to create, any color combination that you use. The crystal clear sparkles so beautifully, and like I said, adds plenty of dimension, plus you have the dimension of those popped up leaves and sentiment as well. For this next card, we're using the Mini Technique block stamp. So this is a rectangular stamp that is solid, and I've placed it in the center of an A2 piece of white cardstock on my Stampwheel grid surface. Now I'll ink up that stamp with that same sapphire ink. I am in love with this color. I think it is such a wonderful deep blue and can be used throughout the year. So I'll stamp that up, and if I don't get a full impression because it looks like I got kind of a fingerprint on there, sounds like something I would do, you can just ink it up again and then flip that grid plate over and re-stamp it. It'll stay in exactly the same place. That's the great part about using the stamp wheel. Okay, so here is the Sweet Jasmine stamps. I am treating the cardstock with anti-static powder tool and then inking up the stamp with embossing ink and then stamping it in the center of that white cardstock. Then I'll pour some gold embossing powder on top and heat set that. This is a gorgeous floral image with 2 jasmine flowers and a bunch of leaves. I love again that they have stencils to color these in. Of course, if you want to stamp these in black ink and color them in yourself with watercolors or markers, more power to you, go for it. But if you don't have as much time, if you're not as confident in your coloring, if you just want to play with a new color combination and see how it turns out, well then these stencils are the way to go. I am in love with layering stencils, and I'll show you at the end of the video. I'm also in love with Altenew's layering dies. They make it so easy to color in these very detailed and beautiful images. They also have dies to cut them out. This is the Painted Blossoms sentiment and die set. So I'm stamping a couple of sentiments because I'm not sure exactly which one I want to use yet. I've treated the paper once again with anti-static powder so I can stamp these sentiments with Versamark ink and then pour the same gold embossing powder on top so that it matches the outline of the florals. I'm cutting out the sentiment that says you're capable of amazing things. I'll pop up the flowers on the bottom right-hand corner of this card and cover up some of those spots that I missed because I made a fingerprint with the sentiment and the flowers. I'll also pop up that sentiment. Once again, if anything just falls off the edge, just flip that card over and cut it off. This time I'm using the gem sparkles in iridescent, and again, these are absolutely gorgeous. They take on the color that is near to them. They have just a rainbow of beautiful shine and sparkle. Next up, we have the Craft a Flower April Kiss Camellia Layering Die Set. Now, I'm showing you the layering guide so you can see how detailed it is. It shows you how many to cut out, and then here are the dies. I love that they're all together in blocks, makes it really easy. So you cut out 2 of the first layer, and you'll know that because it says 1 at the top and then 2 at the bottom. That little hole in the center is going to help you line up these die cuts so that they're perfectly in line. When there's 2 numbers on there, you know you need to cut it twice. If there's only 1 number on there, you only need to cut it once. I'm using a bunch of different inks, and again, I'll have those pink inks listed in the YouTube description box below the video. I've sped this up a little bit so you don't have to watch me ink blend all of these leaves and flowers, but I will show you how to layer them. Okay, here we have the 1 at the top, the 2 at the bottom. So I'm going to start with this one as the 1. I'm going to place glue around the second one that is the exact same shape, but we're going to rotate it so that the 2 is on top and the center is going to line up perfectly. So that little hole in the center, that keyhole, is going to line up perfectly. I like to bend the petals up a little bit just to create a little bit of extra dimension. So you can see that there are 2 numbers on this one as well. So I cut out 2 of these and we'll layer those on top of each other, rotating the second one 180 degrees and making sure that the keyhole is straight in the center. Again, same thing here. You can see how easy it is to move along through this flower. And then the flower center is a couple of pieces that you lay on top of each other to create it. The second flower, same thing. This one actually does look like a little keyhole, and it'll show you 1 or 2 depending on how many you need to do and how you will line them up. This is very simple. They just go one on top of the other. I didn't use foam in between. I only used liquid glue because they're so dimensional on their own. And check out that center. It just looks absolutely beautiful. Just a couple of colors of ink and some white cardstock here. Remember that Rustling Leaves embossing folder? Well, I embossed a vertical A2 piece of white cardstock. I want to use that circle as a place to hold the flowers. One is going to go on the top left and one is going to go on the bottom right. And I have that sentiment set again. I'll stamp out a sentiment and once again treat it with anti-static powder tool, stamp it with Versamark ink so that I can heat emboss this in gold embossing powder. So I'll just add that gold embossing powder on top, pour off the excess, and then heat set it with a heat tool. And I love that sentiment. You are an inspiration, a true inspiration. So I die cut that out. I'll put a foam square in between the 2 flowers so that I can pop up the sentiment, but it's going to lay on both of the flowers as well. So it won't be too popped up, it'll be perfectly popped up. And the leaves, I'll just place on tiny foam squares and stick them into places around those flowers. Last but not least, I'll add a little bit of clear enamel dots around them, but also on those flowers as dewdrops on the leaves. And this was such an easy card to create, but has so much detail to it. I can't even believe it. I don't know about you, but anything that makes it easy for me to create stunning floral designs is something that I'm a huge fan of. So I really enjoyed creating with this brand new Altenew release. But I'd love to hear what you thought. Is there anything that caught your eye this month? Let me know in the comments below. As always, I want to thank you so much for stopping by and spending time with me today. Please stay safe, stay healthy, and I'll see you again soon. This month, Altenew has... Okay, I could do all without the squealing though. One more time. I think that's it.